So for a little while now I've been wanting to do some live sessions on LinkedIn where I make the use of my time and create some content. So one of the ideas that I had was while I'm doing the editing in the nights when everybody else has gone to bed, I thought I could perhaps turn this into like a live session on LinkedIn. But before I did that, I wanted to test the format to see how this worked. So like tonight now, I was going to quickly show you guys how I got started with the podcast editing. So this is a multicam edit, and it's just to give you guys a little bit of context into what goes on, plus to give you an idea that if you're going to do this yourself, roughly the things that you need to take into consideration and the sheer amount of time that editing within the video production world takes. So what we're going to do is we're using DaVinci Resolve. Now I've got the studio version, but there is a free version and it's fantastic. That's what I've been using forevermore for all my editing stuff, and you can download this for free, so there's no cost of entry here to get started. The only consideration that you have to have is that if you are using 10-bit footage, then you might have to convert that to a different file type first before you can use it in the free version, because the free version will accept 10-bit footage. So going back to the podcast, we had 3 cameras. There was a wide, which was getting both people in view, and then you obviously had 2 cameras, one that was on the host and the other is on the guest. So what we're going to do is we're just going to demonstrate how we get this in and how we get everything started off. And if this works out well and you would like this as a more interactive session, then we can do things like this live, but obviously I need your feedback on that, because I would rather put more effort into something that you guys are going to engage with. So right now we've got DaVinci Resolve open, and I've always created a template project, and within that template project it has all the folder structures for my equipment and everything that I need ready. So I don't have to set this up every time I start a new project. It's already there, and it's just a case of me saying saving the project as something else so that I don't overwrite it. Let's go for live stream as a test. So there we go. So that is saved. So what we need to do, we're going to create a timeline, and this is going to be our multicam TR. That's going to be our multicam timeline, and then we're going to create another one, and we're just going to call it podcast. So we need to prepare the multicams so that we can switch between cameras within the editing software, and we use that podcast later, so I'll show you that. So we make sure that we got the multicam selected, and that's this timeline here. So we need the footage, so I've got the A roll, so I'm gonna go to media and I'm gonna browse for that. Where is it? Podcast honor. And again, I've got a template that I use for all my folder structures, again within Windows, so everything is readily available. Now when you are doing a podcast, you need to make sure that you select a camera that can do unlimited recording, because a lot of cameras only do up to 29 minutes, and that is down to, I think, some legal issues within the UK, but there are other cameras that can do up to unlimited, as much as the camera with the memory card will allow. So I'm using a GH5, which is perfect for business. There are better cameras, but for the price to performance ratio, it's a no-brainer. So I've got these 3 different clips, and if you notice, the time for each of these are completely out of sync. Now on each of the cameras we've got time code, and that's plugging into the audio. So when I play this, that horrific noise is actually time code being generated, and that's being pumped into the audio. And because each of these files has it, I can update audio from the time track, and that will put these in perfect sync, which means then that I don't have to line these up in post. It will all be there ready for me. Now that I've done that, I don't want to hear the time code all the time, so I'm going to go to the clip attributes, I'm going to go to the audio, and I'm just going to change this to channel 2, because there's a left and right channel, and channel 2 for mine is just the normal speaking audio, not the time code. So then when I play it, you might not be able to hear that, but that's just the normal audio. So with that in mind, let's go back to the multicam and the A roll. So we've got the multicam selected, so I always start with the wide. So we get the wide there, just for show. I'll go with the guest next, and then you will have myself. And I'm not going to put these in order, just to give you a demonstration of the benefit of time code. So the time code, I can stop and start these cameras, all 3 cameras at different times, and they'll all be in perfect sync, and I won't have to worry about anything. And all I got to do, select them all and say auto align based on time code. It's just, you have no idea the headaches that you can get aligning clips and making sure that everything is perfect sync. But right now, the audio that is being used is coming straight from the cameras, and that's garbage. You don't want that because it's very tinny, it's too far away from the subjects, and you have what's called signal to noise ratio. So if you think about the room as the noise floor, and then the signal is your actually mouth that's actually speaking. The closer that you are to the microphone, the better the signal is, and then the room background noise fades away better. But if the microphone is on the camera and the camera is really far away, then your voice becomes part of the background noise, and that's why it becomes tinny and very echoey. So it's garbage, and you don't want that. So what you want to do is have a separate recorder, and that's the whole reason why you see podcasters with these microphones, because of the audio. Now, these microphones and the audio recorder that is on the H6 doesn't have time code, but I do have a lavalier mic. So I will go to my audio, and I will go to my folder where I have an audio source, which is a track E, and this is a lavalier microphone that has time code. And if you notice, it's got the time code there, and it's also a 32-bit recorder, so it means that it's really fantastic. So you can shout into it and it's not going to clip. So I can put that on the track. I can align it then, auto align based on time code, and then it is going to be much nicer. So if I find a point where I'm speaking, right there. Down to 1 in the space of 5 days, and
yeah, because I'm still like 0 hours. So
yeah. Now if you notice,
that was a massive stress for you as well.
it was just,
I sound nicer, but Donna doesn't. And the reason for that is for what I said earlier, is the signal to noise ratio. She's further away, so it sounds tinnier. So now that we have the lavalier microphone synced up, and that is perfectly aligned to my voice, we can then get the 2 audio from the Zoom. Where is it? H6. Get that. Pull these in. And then what I will do, move this up. And then I will put that there, and I will put that there. And these are going to be completely out of sync. Now the way that we sync this is by wave, by audio. So we right click, and rather than doing it by timecode, we have to do it by waveform. And it's going to actually match the waveforms of the audio from Jocelyn, which is the track E, and it's going to match it with the other two. And they're going to align perfectly because the track E's got timecode, and that's really close to my mouth. So the signal to noise, everything's in perfect sync. So when I do this, it's going to align it, but it has to analyze. So whereas with the time code it did it straight away, here there's an hour of 20 minutes of audio that it's got to go through and analyze and match up. So there is a cost benefit, and if you're doing a lot of work, the tentacle syncs or any other time code device makes this, I love it. I absolutely love it. It's fantastic for weddings. So if you've got like different cameras placed everywhere and you've got time code everywhere, you can have the lavalier on the groom, and that's got time code, and you can just set that to record, and it doesn't matter where they are, it won't drift. It's perfect. I absolutely love it. It's just such a time saver post editing. And there we go. Bada bing. So now I can mute that.
Because it wasn't just your health, it was
Everything.
It was everything. You couldn't drive. You couldn't
So I
put
can-
your foot on the clutch.
Well, I could. Well, before all that, I couldn't walk. So it was like, you know, I was sleeping downstairs, and I'd hear my kids get up in the morning.
Yeah.
You know.
Much nicer. So what I'm demonstrating here is that we have the base components of an hour and 20 podcast, and everything's in perfect sync. Now, what we haven't done, we haven't cut this up for the relevant angles for when the people are speaking. We haven't done the color grading. We haven't done any audio treatment, nothing. But in this space of, I was going to say 15 minutes for argument's sake, we have gotten the base part of it. So you say to yourself, right, okay, well, that's all well and good. It's all neatly aligned. Well, what now? So what we have here is we have all the tracks. So let's label it. So there's the wide. This is Donna. This is me. That's the lavalier. Because I'm not speaking as much, that's me. And then this will be your guest, or in our case, this will be Donna. We're labeling the audio tracks and everything. Now that we've done that, convert this to what's known as a multicam clip. And that's what we're going to do. And it's done it. So I'm going to select my podcast, timeline, double click to get onto it. I'm then going to drag this multicam timeline in, and it's only showing us one image at the moment because that's the only one that's been selected. We're going to pick multicam, and here we are. So now we can switch between different angles as we want, which is fantastic. So these options allow us to cut on video only, video and sound, and then sound only. So you might want to, say for instance, if you've got one camera but you want to cut between different pieces of audio, you can do it here. But because we've already got the good audio, I only ever cut on the video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this one to be, going to change this angle to Donna, and I'm going to label it Donna. I'm going to unlink them because I need to unlink them first, and all I did there was I pressed Alt and I dragged it down, and then I'm going to change the angle to be me. So now I've got two sources of audio that I want from the multicam, and then I'm going to select them all and I'm going to link them back. Now there are other ways to do this. You can use sync bins, and there are a multitude of ways. This is just the way that I like to work with it, because I've had issues with sync bins and other stuff in the past, and for the sake of efficiency and getting the job done, this is what I go with. So now that we have this to go through, whenever we are wanting to then cut between a different angle, a camera, so right now I'm on wide. If I decide that I want to specifically look at and it creates a cut, and what that means is if I it's on the wide, and if I go forward a frame, it goes to Donna. But then I might want to cut to myself, and then it creates a new cut, and then I might want to go to the wide. But this is 12 minutes into it. If I was to zoom in, you would be doing this every 5 seconds. So give or take that over the course of an hour and 20 minutes of podcast, that's a lot of cutting that you have to do. So right there I was just explaining to Donna about the cameras and about the time code and not having to worry and where to look, for example. So we've got it on the wide. A second. And then perhaps I'll go to Donna. Right, so right now the PC is starting to kick off because I've got 3 video clips which are an hour and 20 long. They are at 4K, and this is not compressed or anything, so the computer is having a bit of a trouble dealing with it. So when you have stuff this long and of that file size, one, I work in a 19 by 20 HD format, so I've pulled it down to help the PC out. The playback, I've also got preferred proxies, and I'll explain that now. Timeline proxy takes whatever this is and reduces the resolution. So right now it's on full, but I might turn this down to quarter, and if you noticed, Donna's gone blurry. And the reason for that is that it's reducing the actual file size in order for us to play this better.
And that's what we're going to be talking about.
It's still not. So what we need to do then in that instance, and I don't need to do this all the time, but podcasts are very, very large in the actual file size, and that's creating the proxies. So where it says timeline proxy, no proxy handling, sorry, preferred proxies, right now there are no proxies that have been developed or delivered. So a proxy is just another version of this, but it's more efficient. So what you would do is, if I come here, boom, 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 boom. So proxy media resolution. So I've set this to quarter, and I would set it to DNX HR lower. So you've got high quality, you've got lower quality, and you've got like medium quality or standard quality, and you've got lower quality. I was pressing the wrong stuff there, so ignore what I was doing there. Leave it at that. I think it was on SQ actually. So here, it's going to create a much more efficient video file of what's in there. And then I'm going to tell it where to create it. So I might save it somewhere on the PC. Now when I save everything on an external hard drive that I work on. It's not on the PC. so on an external hard drive. And the reason for that, if the PC dies, the work is safe. And then I've got another external hard drive that gets backed up to, and then I've got the cloud, Backblaze, and everything that's on that external hard drive gets shipped up. So there's redundancy there. But if I now come out, where's Donna? So there's, save that before we close. And I'll just to give you an example of what I mean by the proxies. See, that's got a proxy. You see it's PXY, that's got a proxy, and that's got a proxy. And this is the main clip, so let's just make sure that the resolution is fine. Playback, proxy handling, prefer proxies, half. Let's just make sure that change source folder, because I have been working on a did I do it? It's not plugged in, that's why. Give you here. Don't need to change it. So this is a solid state drive. Sometimes I use this when I'm doing a few things and I want to render. The solid state drive is much better for that. Let's put a G. That should come up. There it is. There we go. Right, so so FND master, which is, so whenever I create a podcast or anything that requires a lot of editing, and I know that it's going to take an inordinate amount of time to render this out. So for instance, I think this took 6 hours to render the master file, and that is what I'll do. I will go through and create all the cuts that I need. So if we look at this, so all of those are the cuts and the different angles and that I went through to create this podcast. So it goes through. So I had to watch the the podcast through, and I had to create all the cuts. So I had to watch for each specific bit. Do I want to focus here? Do I want to focus in this point? Do I want to come back and wide?
I think I can all do it. Can you also?
Sometimes the audio doesn't always come through properly. But this is the whole point of having proxies, is then I can play it back smoothly. If I don't do this on long clips like this, then it's a bit of a nightmare. And generating the proxies take a while. So generating the proxy might take 2 hours, but it means I can run through. So you always edit and do the proxies and do the master file either overnight or when you're not doing anything, so that you're not incurring any loss of time. So this is what happens. You then create a master edit, and then this master edit, you then got a color grade. I don't do any sound treatment at this point, but I get the bass done. And it doesn't look as crisp because obviously it's using a proxy. And then if we go to deliver, we'll have a look to see how long the master file took, because there's noise reduction and there's a lot of stuff that's going on with this. And that's, she's gonna kill me for pausing on that face, but did it only take, okay. Okay, so I'm going to, I've told Porkies, so this only took 2.5 hours. But what this did was it then created a master file, which was a master morph file, which we can find. Where did I put it? There. So it generates this file.
So,
And this has got
would you like to introduce
the
yourself?
color grading, the full
No,
resolution,
no,
and
I
everything.
don't I? And
But what that means is that the PC doesn't have to do any additional overhead. So once I created the master, I can then use that to create the podcast. So here is the master file. And then what I will do to create the intro, I will, when I was creating the edit, I was highlighting specific points that I really liked, that I thought would be a good soundbite in the original master. And then I was just putting this on the adjustment clip. And then within that, then I went back through and I picked out all the stuff that I really liked. And when I did that, I then created the highlight, which is at the start of the actual podcast. So it gives you a sneak peek into everything that's about to come up. And then you overlay some different effects, transitions, you put subtitles, just to really pull everything out. And on average, I would say that the podcast took about 20 hours to edit, and that's just to edit. So then if you take into context the fact that it took 20 hours to edit, the planning that was involved, liaising, well obviously I would liaise with a customer or a client. That takes a couple of hours. You've got to get the questions and everything, make sure what they feel comfortable with, and are there anything that are off limits and all that. Once you've done that, you've obviously got to schedule a time and where to be. Well, obviously it's at my house. And then there's also then the setup, and that can be a separate video if you want. But that then, just to do one podcast, you're looking at about 30 hours. So if you take into account, if you're a business owner and you want to pay someone to do this for you, then you have to take into account that the actual time could be for that business is 30 hours. That is almost a staff's working week. So you need to really, so if they say, for instance, yeah, we can do a podcast, it's £1,500. It could be even more. You don't know. It depends on who you go with. Then there's a reason for that. Whilst you might be seeing the fact that, you were only there for 2 hours doing the shoot. Outside of that, there's a massive amount of work. But if you want to do it yourself, and you absolutely can, and if you want to use me for consultancy or training, I can absolutely do that. Just bear in mind that whilst it cuts down on cost, it's not going to cut down on time. So there's always a trade-off, and it depends on what you want as a business, where you need to focus your energy, how much time you got for training staff, and all those other things. But yeah, that is the basics of it. Once you have that, you then so we then got the split. Once I've got that master file, and then I've got my podcast that I upload to YouTube or what have you, you've then got different splits of it. So then I go through the podcasts again, and I find bits that I really like. And we split that. But then we split that again into bits that are the same principle as the podcast. So we'll go through that clip. We will then find a soundbite that we really like, put it at the start. You've got the music, you've got the transition, you've got the intro, you have, and then you do that, and then you've got to render that out, and you've got to take into consideration where it's going, who it's for, yada yada yada. So you know then what type of rendering out. So as you can see over here, I've got the FND split, which is 16:9, and then I've got the 9:16, which I've just made sure that that is where it needs to be. And basically the 9:16 is all these split out, and they are put in, and then there's different effects going on here. I've got a banner, I've got my logo, I've got different text for certain things, and I've got myself. I don't fill this up, and the reason being is like TikTok will put different icons on the right hand side and the different icons on the left hand side. So if you are putting important information in there, you gotta realize that that real estate space is being taken up by icons by the platform that it's sitting on. So that is why I still prefer to use the 16:9 in a 9:16 format, because I can put the video there, put some text central here, heading, who I am, my branding with the logo at the back, and then all this space under there is being used for the actual platform. So you've got to look for the platform as well, and you know, horses for courses and all that jazz. And I'm going to leave it there tonight. I'm happy with that. So if you found this useful and you would prefer this in a live format, let me know, and we'll see how I can help educate you or help with any questions that you got. And have a nice night. Cheers.